And we're off.
Hello, everyone, and welcome again to the Property Experts podcast and also video live at 5 every single Friday without fail. No matter all the trials and tribulations Ben and I face in our businesses, we always promise to you that we will make at least one of us coming along to our live at 5 every week. And we've got a jam-packed episode today. So without further ado, I'll get on to the agenda. And obviously, if you're listening on the podcast, thank you very much for listening. We'll do our best to explain what we're visually seeing in front of us. So today's the 23rd of February, 2024. And our agenda is a fun one today. And there's a lot of nuggets in here of what we do in our business and the sort of changes that we make in our business for intent. So first off, we'll be kicking off of should you sell or hold your assets? Which is actually one in the industry that I see as a big question, because some people are born and they like to sell and some people are born and like to hold. So we'll be sharing why we go through analysis to decide which we do of the two. What is a letter of intent? We'll be sharing that. How to manage his finances across 20 limited companies. So we've obviously grown to quite a big group now. And I was actually sharing with a
Jack, you've gone on mute. I think you tapped your mic.
Oh, right. Okay. I think I should be fine now. I don't know how long I was on mute for. Okay, good. So we'll be talking about our finances and how we manage our finances over the 20 limited companies in the group that we run and what you should be doing to manage that process too. Having lunch with banks, Ben and I had the pleasure to sit down with a couple of lenders that one we've worked with, one we haven't yet, and we'll be sharing why it's good to put a face to a name when it comes to lenders. Point number 5 is, are you surrounding yourself by bigger thinkers? I don't know if you saw my podcast get launched today by Dorian Payne, but he talks about surrounding yourself with people doing more and bigger things than you are, to sort of ride on their vision and their big thinking. Point number 6, getting leads with pay-per-click, or PPC, also known as. We'll be talking about lending on different developments into different buy-to-lets. Point 8, Jack's hacks, managing tasks during working hours. So I'm a massive advocate of efficiencies, and I'll be sharing what I do to make sure that I can cram in 2 persons worth of work in one day. The kickoff meeting at the Old Maltings, our old malting building that we bought, and we've got planning consent for 20 flats, and we're also going in for more planning. We'll be sharing some details on that. Taylor Brown's written a comment live at 5. I don't know if that's a joke because we're a little bit late today, but thank you, Taylor. Either way. And then 10, Ben's been spending a lot of time boosting his value per hour by doing a lot of value engineering. So last but not least, we'll be talking about value engineering and how Ben's getting on with that. And then obviously, Taylor Brown, start asking questions. Anyone else start asking questions. And I will say, you can ask questions on the podcast if you come onto the YouTube channel and put questions in even after the lives. But also, we are going to challenge anyone that can ask a question that we can't answer. Until this date, we haven't had that question. Cool. So kicking off, should you sell or should you hold? Now, we obviously brush shoulders with a lot of other developers, a lot of property investors in the industry, and it's kind of for me, it's kind of like I feel that most people are either really set out on holding, or they're really set out in selling, or they do a bit of the both. We're of the latter, so we do both. And I think that there's been times where we wish we had sold more. And, it's starting to get to the old age where we can turn back and look at stuff that we have sold and thought, oh, we wish we would have kept that. So I wanted to share with, anyone out there that's in property investment or development, or whatever that may be that you're in, how we arrive at the conclusion whether we should sell it or hold the property. I think fundamentally I'm speaking for our whole group, whether it's Central Suites or XP Property. We'd rather hold as much as we can, because we know that property is a very strong asset in the UK. Capital appreciation certainly works in your favour, but that has a knock-on impact into your business. And I always say that you cannot pay your staff with equity in property. It's just impossible. So you need to think about the business goals. So the first point is, what is your business goals in your business? So let's say, for example, you wanted to scale to 100 property portfolio. and you want to hold that 100 property portfolio, you will have a different strategy and nature of how you go about operating your business and running your business to if you wanted to run a 30 million pound development company, because that may mean to get to that scale and trajectory you need to sell stuff. So what we look at is the business needs, and I'm a big believer that we probably kept a little bit too much and suffered that you can't pay your staff with equity in property because we were very asset rich, cash poor, but we're still a growing development company. If we weren't a growing development company, it would have been less of an issue. So looking at the sell or hold model, I'm of the view that if you're scaling and growing, it's better to be selling stock and reinvesting that capital into your growth and into new projects. If you're idling or staying the same size, you could probably afford to hold more. So what I mean by that is some people set out and say, I just want to hold, I only want to buy assets to hold. And fundamentally, I think that will limit your growth. And I think that your scalability of your businesses will be impacted by holding too much. But if you wish to scale and grow and reinvest that capital, that money that would be sat as an equity deposit in a property, let's say, for example, it's creating an 8% gross yield, which nets down to a cash flow of £300 per month. It doesn't really touch the size for your growth. So the key thing there is it's all about what your business goals are and what your business needs. And I definitely think, speaking on behalf of Ben and I, in the first 5 years is the best time to be selling stuff to reinvest for growth. But our business wanted to be a 50 million turnover per annum business with a team that can facilitate that. If you're a one-man band and you bring in consultants, you probably can hold more because the income is more impactful and you've got less of an overhead of a company. So that's definitely a consideration. Another consideration that we take into fact is the location. We don't hold any stock or own any properties within sort of an hour and a half of where we live. If we did a planning flip or we bought a site that was a really, really good opportunity, no brainer, but was in Warwickshire, we would probably be more likely to sell that than we would to hold that for the like of the location. So location's quite a big one for us. We also look at yield. Now, I'm not actually a massive fan of yield, and actually that's actually why I put this in here, because I want to come on to the next point, which sort of elaborates on why I'm not a massive fan of yield. A lot of people go, I want to keep that, it's a great yield. I want to hold that asset, the yields are up there, are great. For me, it all depends on return on cash and return on equity. Now, those two different things mean obviously a very different metric to yield. Your yield is your income against the value. So let's assume you have a £100,000 asset that's bringing in £10,000 per year. Your yield is 10%. I kind of don't really care what that figure is. It could be 2%, it could be 20%. What I really care about on that asset is what my return on cash is, which is when you take it through the transition of delivery, what money you're getting back and what's left in. So if you leave in, so say for example, let's say you've got a £100,000 property bringing in £10,000 gross rent, but let's assume it's bringing in £1,000 net rent, and the money that's left in the project is £10,000, you're getting 10% back on your cash. Now, I like to see, and we like to see, in excess of 15% return on our cash. The yield is still the same on the property. The return on cash is the really important metric that we're looking for here. Yield sometimes does come into play, but I really want to see that return on cash. And it's analysing, and this is kind of like when you're looking at a property and looking to analyse to buy it, these are the metrics you should be looking at pre-purchase to understand what sort of returns you're getting. The next one, which is equally important and often forgotten, is your return on equity. The reason that that is really key is because you kind of need to know what you could be doing with that equity if it wasn't sat in that project. So let's say the same example, £100,000 house, 10k gross income, £1,000 net income, but your equity in that project is £30,000. That's technically saying your exit mortgage is 70% loan to value. So 70k is the mortgage, 30k is your equity. And if you're making 1% on that 30k, that's a really poor return on that equity. And I would argue that you could then go and spend it elsewhere in a different project. You obviously have to factor in legal costs, sales costs, acquisition costs for the new project. But the return on equity is a key indicator of where that money could be working better elsewhere. And when you in your business understand the returns on cash you get in different projects and the return on equity you get in different projects, you can analyze whether you've got an underperforming or a performing asset. And that's really, really key. If you're not doing a lot of deals all the time, you might want to leave it in there with a lower return on cash and a lower return on equity, but make sure that that's chasing capital appreciation and inflation to make sure the returns are good. Cool. Now, talking about more finance heady, it's actually become apparent of the most recent Liz Truss, Brexit, whatever you want to call it, changes in the market, or even the doom and gloom recession that's been muttered. The interest rates have gone up, and the rental coverage against the mortgage has made it really difficult for properties to actually cash flow. And I was with someone this week, and they said that they own a buy-to-let property, and because of interest rates going up and their existing mortgage, they're making £150 per month off a £400,000 asset, and they just said it's not worth keeping it anymore. So when you're analysing your investment properties or HMOs or even developments, stress it out to varied interest rates. So you might be looking at, if it's a HMO at the moment, 5.5%, but make sure you stress it to 6.5% and 7.5%. Make sure that's still a good return and worthwhile keeping. But equally, when you're looking at the actual cash that it's kicking out, you might be better just selling that on the market and reinvesting that money elsewhere, because you might have made your money in the refurb or conversion or planning more so than actually the rental roll that you're going to be generating from that prospect. So to create an example out of that, we've got a site in Sunset, well, it's actually called Sunset Court in Buckinghamshire, and the yield on it is absolutely diabolical because the properties are worth so much money. So we've got flats that are almost worth 500k. So coincidentally, tying that in, the rent roll is going to be the same on some of our other properties, that, you know, a 2-bedroom flat, for an example, that are worth 250,000. So if a 250,000 and a 500,000 pound flat that's generating the same rent roll, I'd rather sell the 500k flat and have more of the higher yielding, higher return on cash, higher return on equity cash, that cash flow better on the rental coverage and the interest rates itself, if that makes sense. So I hope that is clear. I know that there's probably people out there. I'd love to know if you're a seller or a holder or both. Put it in the comments below. We've got plenty of friends that are developers that only hold. Quite comically, I don't know if you've ever watched a conflict between John Howard and Ranjan Bhattacharya. John Howard says that Ranjan's never lost any money on a project because he's never sold anything. He's never realised the loss. But for me, it's a more of a intricate review on the numbers and whether it's worthwhile keeping. Some assets are really easy to keep with high cash flow, and a good return on cash and a good return on equity are our two most important metrics. But we also consider, what does the business need? Are we strangling ourselves by being more equity rich or asset rich and not thinking about the cash flow, which is always a big consideration in a property investment business, property development business. But in any business, if you're growing, your cash flow's got to be there. You can be the most profitable business in the world, but if your cash flow doesn't carry you to the points of profit, you're not going to be successful. We have a question in from Taylor, and I'll answer it now. I can't share it on the screen, I don't think, but it says, do Central Suites have their own lettings business? And if so, why or why not? Thanks. Cool. So if you haven't joined us before, we run an eclect of businesses. So we run our surveying company, Ben runs his own architectural practice, we run the development company, and the Central Suites is our management and lettings company. We do our own flips and do our own HMOs. I'm going to off on a bit of a tangent on HMOs and what I believe is needed in a HMO portfolio. So when you're growing a HMO portfolio, I believe that you're best to kind of make sure that you go all in on that and build a significant portfolio so that you can hire one member of staff to manage 100 doors, and then you benefit on the profit for the management. So to answer your question, Taylor, we do all of our lettings for XP Property. We do all of the lettings for Central Suites. We charge a lettings fee accordingly, as it was to be a third party. And we obviously make a markup on that as if we were essentially a service-based business running a lettings business. The only reason we brought that in-house is because we got to critical mass with the amount of bedrooms that we had, so it made sense to do it ourselves. Where we're located, and we get about £850 per room average, that is about 40 bedrooms is the sort of real good size to go, right, we're not going to give this to a letting agent, we're going to bring it in-house and manage this ourselves. So we do it. We don't necessarily do it massively for clients. So i.e., a woman down the road has got a buy-to-let property and she wants it let out and it's between Chancellors, Savills and Central Suites. That's not really our bag. That's, for me, is too client heavy, and you've got to deal with customer relations, and you've got to be able, you also got to think about advertising and bring that business in. The reason that we do XPs and Central Suites is for the reasons mentioned. It's profitable to do that. We will look at landlords' portfolios, i.e. a block of flats, or, let's say we know someone that's a developer that's finished a block of flats that's local to our areas. We will consider that. And we are essentially, in my opinion, a bit better than local agents because we care more, we understand the model, we understand what it's like being a landlord. Whereas it's not just another address on the CRM system that gets given to a younger member of the team that just open the door on viewings and don't, push up rents, play people off each other, and get the best result for landlords. So not really in the market, but we will consider it with landlords. Cool. On to the next topic, which I think Ben's going to dive in and help with.
Yeah, I am. And if you've seen me on YouTube, head down, I'm frantically actually in the background finishing the slides and stuff because we were pretty late today to the party. So I've been trying to fill out everything from here onwards. I'm almost there, but I'll have to go back to it in a minute. But at the moment,
do you want to take over the screen share and then I can jump into it?
No, it's all right. I'm almost done. So point number 2 is about letters of intent. If you work in construction, you probably know something a bit about what I'm talking about. If you've never seen that notation before, then effectively a letter of intent is a document expressing an intention to enter into a contract at a future date, but creates no contractual relationship until that future contract has been entered into. Now, that sounds a bit sort of backwards, but fundamentally, the reason that I'm bringing this up is because we are now entering into 2 contracts for our latest scheme. So the project in Muswell Hill, which is a conversion to 9 flats, and the Old Maltings, which is a conversion into 20 flats with some future works, which I'll actually talk about in later points. But fundamentally, we've now sort of got to a point where we're happy on a figure with the contractors. So we've agreed a price, and we're now moving forward. We don't want to lose time in mobilizing works on site, getting things in place, sorting out insurances, actually allocating resource and team, both from our side and from the contractor's side, without having a formal letter to say that we want to move forward. Now, drawing up and finalizing a JCT contract, which is a building contract, and that's what we'll be using. Formalizing that may take a couple of weeks to go back and forth on the relevant terms and dotting the I's and crossing the T's. Now, we don't want to lose 2 weeks where the contractor can be mobilizing, can be organizing materials, can be organizing site welfare and doing all of that good stuff to get a jump on things. So what we would do, and what is very common practice, is to write a letter of intent from us as the developer to say that we are wanting to enter into a relationship, a contractual relationship with you, the contractor, and effectively this is what's been agreed previously in terms of what the price will be. We will allow up to £50,000, £100,000, £75,000, whatever you want that to be. We will allow you to spend effectively that much money in this process until we finalize the actual contract and get into formal signed contracts. And that will allow you to allocate the resource, set up the site welfare, buy the relevant materials, etc., to get moving as quickly as possible on site. So that's a sort of whistle-stop tour of what a letter of intent is. If you're interested in getting a copy of that, you can message us about templates, and we can send across our template for it. It's very much, it's probably a 3 or 4 page document actually with various clauses and legalese, but effectively the premise of it is that we're sending them a letter to say that we intend on instructing you in a formal contract to be our contractor for this project. And that's a letter of intent. Oh, you're on mute again. Yeah.
On to finances. Ben, you can clatter off in the background and badger away.
Yeah.
So as the businesses grow, we've talked about this a lot, and we had great support from a company called UFD, which stands for Ultimate Finance Directorship, which is run by Josh Keegan. But we basically bought into his product to really sort out our finances. But before then, Ben and I had a very elaborate spreadsheet that we used to dive into once or twice a fortnight, and really dial down into the movements, the monies, the incomes, the outgoings, the overheads, squeeze things where we need to, and really analyze our finances. We're strong believers that your finance is your business plan, essentially. You can put in future projects. You need to be accurate on your existing projects. You need to think about growth, reinvestment, whatever it may be. And if you're not on your finances, problems are problems there and then. And if you are on top of your finances, you can see them coming and make changes and arrangements, or move things around, or go out and source more working capital, or whatever it may be. But I wanted to share, because actually it was Aaron in our team basically asked me about how we do this, because he's acknowledged that there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of change, there's a lot of finance going in and out every week. And in a service-based business like XP Surveys, we've obviously got the lease plan of the kit, we've got everyone's salaries, we've got the office rent, we've got fuel. That's pretty consistent. When it comes down to XP Property, it's extremely inconsistent, almost unpredictable if you don't have these ironed out. So we were already sort of on the sort of topic of what we used to do. Is we used to do monthly bookkeeping, and we had a software for that, and that would feed into Xero. And we also had a self-made spreadsheet, which was difficult, because if you made one error on one Excel cell, it would be problematic. And equally, to feed all of the bookkeeping into that spreadsheet would be a very big task. So since then, and this is a shout out to UFD, and if anyone wants an intro to UFD, comment below and we will make sure that we make an introduction for you, because we cannot recommend them enough. They come in, they build sort of, I would call, framework spreadsheets, as if they are a finance director for your company. So they come in, they look at what you're doing, they build today's, they build the futures, they forecast it for you, they feed everything in from the profit and loss. They're bringing a bookkeeping team in to make sure that everything's brought up to date, and it really gives you that clarity. Now we're a group of about 20 businesses now across XP Property, XP Surveys, Central Suites, and Aura Architecture. So it's not easy to manage that, especially when there's money movement going from a group code down to invest in a project, a group code down to invest in the soft costs. Our trading entity has obviously got tons of transactions for software subscriptions, meals out for investors, whatever it may be. So for us, it's really bringing up that heartbeat of the business, and that's exactly how we operate. It all runs directly off Xero. We know that when Ben and I go in to do our money management reviews, which is now still once a fortnight, everything is completely up to date, almost within a week, which is huge, because we then know that what the next 3, 4, 5, 10 months looks like, and we can forecast way past that to make sure that we're hitting our goals, hitting our trajectory, and also managing our money as best we can. Obviously, there's still errors from time to time. We actually had one the other day for quite a big, large amount of sum, where the bookkeeper misread a date from a document that was superseded. And those things happen, but it's not on everything. That's one of 1,000 inputs that they put in over the month. And it's really important to get on top of your finances and manage that. And once I expressed this and talked through our team member Aaron this, he couldn't believe the detail and the accuracy that we would bring our business finances up to, but knew there would be something like that in place, but just didn't know what it looks like. So that was where I triggered, let's share this with everyone, share how we do it. And quite frankly, you want to be seeing problems before they are a problem, because your job essentially as a business owner is to problem solve. That problem, if you know it 6 months ahead, gives you enough time, not run around like headless chicken, and do what you need to do. We're in property, so I know what it's like sometimes when you're trying to buy something and the valuation comes back 5% less, and you're due to exchange next week, and then the surveyor goes, actually, I'm not happy with this, and this, and you need to panic stations. But the thing is, you're getting so much time back by having everything else accurately marked, and that's super key.
Very good.
Lunch and dinner with banks.
Oh, Jack, I think you need to refresh the slides.
Okay, let me try. doing
You just
that.
need unslide show and then reslide show.
Oh.
This week we've gone out for lunch with a number of banks. We had a closing dinner with Sam from Merry Oaks. He took us to a very, very nice sort of Persian restaurant, wasn't it, in London Bridge? And just to say, thanks for the business. And he brought the bank along with him, so we were direct to the case handlers, the relationship managers, the people that actually work behind the scenes at Avermore Bank, who lent on Conley Hatch Lane in Muswell Hill. And like Jack's sort of showing on the screen, people is a property game.
And can you make sure that's on the?
Oh, sorry, yeah, there we go.
Big screen, yeah, cool.
Yeah, all good. Yeah, people is a property game.
Yeah, I think what I was going to add with this is so we met with the lender. So the dinner we met with the lender and the broker, and I actually love the intuition from Sam to think, let's get these guys in front of each other because it's going to be a process of delivering that project. And I think, just showing your face and showing you're a normal person helps that tone of email that's going out next week, talking about drawdowns and talking about the future way of working with each other. And we've had this with multiple lenders. We had a stickler of a point on another deal, which was actually the Old Maltings with the lender that we were refinancing out there. And you just soften them up a bit. They realize that you're normal people just trying to do normal things and run a normal business. And the last thing you want is conflict. And when you're sat behind emails and an underwriter saying, I can't do that, I can do this, I can't do that, I can do this, and you're getting fed up with it because all you want to do if you're in construction and property is develop stuff, right? So you kind of break down that almost like moral barrier. So they go, oh, yeah, I've met Jack, he's a normal person, or I've met Ben, and the drawdown that he's asking for isn't taking the neck. There must be a reason for that. So it was really good to see everyone, and I'd highly recommend it with or without your broker, depending on the relationship with the lender. Making the effort will, I'm thinking we were probably at dinner for 3 hours, but I would guarantee that we're going to get that back now in knowing the person that we're dealing with in the process on this particular project. So it's definitely worth the investment of time. Cool. Are you surrounding yourself with bigger thinkers? I mentioned at the beginning of the call that I met up with Dorian Payne, and the podcast is now out, so everyone needs to go and watch that on YouTube. I think it's Payne on Property, where I talk a bit about my childhood growing up, what I was like, what we did, what the struggles and growth, growth pains were. And I love the way Dorian thinks, but what he always says is he's trying to surround himself with people that are doing more or bigger or I don't want to say better things, because essentially you're running your best thing yourself, but you do want to be around those other thinkers. And the reason I put this in here, because I met up with some friends on Saturday, and we're in the property industry and the numbers are big because our gross development value is total sales. So most of that revenue is actually bank debt. Quite a lot of it is other costs that surround bank debt. Some of it is our profit. So if we're aiming for 20% on GDV and we're turning over 35 million, it's not actually a huge revenue business as opposed to selling a product where you're making a 50% markup on your costs. Turning over 3 million would be huge. But the reason I put this on here is because a question I actually asked Dorian when we interviewed him is and it didn't actually make the cut on the video, is like, has he had people around him that he struggles to be around because he's grown his business and because he's scaled his business? And I get a huge kick of being around other people that are doing slightly similar things or bigger things. And it's just to sort of make you think about who you want to be spending your time with from a business perspective. Obviously, family and friends is slightly different, but I have the luck of a friend of mine has recently set up his own fund within a hedge fund company. And it did make me sort of look back at, and I think we've gone forward one somehow, because I haven't.
Yeah, we have. It's me. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I'm guessing I can stop sharing, can I?
You can.
Yeah, cool. So this really good friend of mine that I met up with, his hedge fund that he's set up and he's running his desk is a £300 million hedge fund, which he's investing in currencies. And it's fun to talk about how they go about investing that type of capital, what he has to do day to day, how he reports into his seniors, how he has to report into his stakeholders, and then also talking about his team, which is 23 people, and one of his founding directors that he works under, who's trading over $1 billion in trading, and how he goes about working his day, what his routine is, how he thinks. And so for me you know, I left a company that was turning over 300 million, which was my last employed job. And I thought that was huge. We're kind of there now and breaking that. And it's, you know, proud to say that, but you're not always the biggest. You're not always you know, doing it essentially the best way, and you're not always thinking the biggest. So just a tip there to just try and check in with people that you may already know about, that will think bigger than you, and ask the questions. You don't have to obviously follow up on their questions, but for me, when you're speaking to someone that's, you know, my age, running a 300 million pound hedge fund, and his boss is running a 3 billion pound hedge fund, you can learn a lot from a quick conversation. And I really enjoyed it, and it made me think, well, I've got to get stuck in here, and you know, competitive competition is healthy, if that's what you want. But I just thought that it's something that we haven't mentioned before, but I do think it is a great way to think, and also reassess what you're doing in your business and your goals, and you know, what more could you be doing.
Yeah, I think the old saying of you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, I think is very, very true. And if you're surrounding yourself with bigger thinkers and people that are, you know, inspirational and doing great things, it's only going to drag you up to kind of their level, which is great when you're in business. Cool. I just wanted to give a quick 101 around PPC and getting leads with PPC. We're doing more of this with Aura now, and we have been running some campaigns for the last couple of months with XP surveys. And it's something that you need to keep on top of, but I just wanted to give a real rundown, really. So the key things for us when we're looking at pay-per-click advertising, which is effectively, you know, this could be on Meta, Facebook, Instagram, any place where you're effectively paying for that platform to push it out to people. In this case, on screen, we've got Google Ads. So Google Ads pay-per-click. And there are sort of 3 key things that we're focusing on at the moment. We've got search campaigns, which is effectively people typing into Google, find me a measured surveyor nearby. We want to be coming up when somebody types that into Google, in the ad space at the top of the Google page. We're in the hope that people don't scroll any further. They click our ad and they move forward with our website. The other type is a display type of ad, where effectively you create creatives, graphic designs, logos, you know, anything you want to be showing visually, and then that pops up. You know, I know for sure on travel blogs, for example, when people are looking to go on holiday, you're on a travel blog, there's so many ad spaces on travel blogs. You will, if you visit our site, for example, and we've got display ads on, we may pop up on your screen in a blog that isn't even relevant to us, but that is Google basically pushing us out to as many people as they possibly can. So that's essentially what a display ad is. And I sort of loosely touched on retargeting there. Like if people have been on our Instagram page, our Facebook page, our web page, retargeting is an amazing way of following people around the internet. So, you know, if you've been on our website once, if we've got Google retargeting on, you will probably see ads that pop up on various different pages that aren't relevant to us, because we're trying to continue to grab your attention and move you forward, and you know, create a lead from you, and effectively try and make you a customer of ours. Some of the key things we focus on. So we've got return on investment, or return on ad spend. So if we are investing £2,000 a month in Google Ads, are we getting £10,000 worth of work off the back of that? Are we getting £20,000 worth of work? Obviously, the better the return, the better the ads are performing for your business. The other things we look at on that return on ad spend is the conversions and the conversion rate. So how what percentage of ads are converting into leads. And one thing I would say about conversions is you need to be really careful and specific about what a conversion is, because if they're not set up correctly, you could be tracking things like somebody viewing 2+ pages on your website and Google seeing that as a conversion. That's not really relevant. You know, for example, with XP surveys, a conversion for us would be something like somebody clicking the phone link on our website to make a phone call and you know, create a lead that way. People filling out the contact form on our website, clicking the info@XP surveys button, downloading a brochure or a guide. All of those things are real clear. People putting their hands up saying, we want to talk to you, I'm a lead, you know, I need some of your business. So looking at conversions from that perspective. And then your cost per click. So obviously you want as low a cost per click as possible from the right clients, so that it's not costing you a fortune every time somebody sees your advert and clicks through. Now, there's a big difference between the quality of lead that you may get, and we get this all the time with Aura, whereby we're targeting more higher end clients that have £500,000 plus to spend on their home extension, and sometimes we'll get links for we'll get clicks through from people that just want to do a loft extension for 100 grand, and that's not really our sort of avatar client. So being super niche and super kind of targeted towards your avatar client is something you should be looking at when you're creating PPC adverts. But hopefully that's a bit of useful information for those that are in small service-based businesses and do want to look at PPC advertising rather than relying on clients finding you on the internet. You are actively searching for them and using the things like Google, Meta, other pay-per-click platforms to do that for you. Cool.
Very good, very good. So I know that you finance boffins will probably already know this, but for those of you that don't, I thought I'd cover it off anyway, which is talking about the difference between development finance and buy-to-let finance. And the reason this sprung up is because I was on a call with one of our investors this week who's putting some capital into a finished project that is income producing on a second charge. And that investor doesn't necessarily have the same experience in investment as we do. So the question was asked, what do I need to look out for in this? And I kind of went through a bit of I suppose, a teaching lesson, to be fair, because the investor is there for the earn and learn model with us. So they invest with us, and they want to learn more about property investment, property development, and how we find sites, deliver them, and sell them. And I basically touched on a really important factor. So this particular investor has onboarded with a development project where they've invested basically the 30% above the bank of the capital stack. So the capital stack is 100% of the costs. The bank is making up about 70% of the costs, and the investor's making up 30% of the costs. So that investor is technically between the 70 and the 100% of the capital stack. Now, when they're investing in something that's completely finished and cash flowing, it's very different. You shouldn't fund 100% of the capital stack because there's no new value that's going to be created. And the reason that you don't fund that part is because you're at 100% of costs on something that's finished, and that is essentially its gross development value. You're essentially lending at 100% gross development value. So lenders will always look at a few things. Development lenders will look at loan to gross development value and loan to cost. A buy-to-let lender will look at loan to value because it's already had the value add. So what I was talking through with this particular investor is they were coming in at between 60% loan to cost, which is 60% loan to GDV, and 70% loan to cost and loan to GDV because it's finished. So it's a very different way of looking at the capital stack. And we've done an episode before, and we can put it in the comments about the capital stack and how we reviewed that. If you are investing in something that's finished, you kind of don't want to be investing 100% loan to GDV because you're essentially buying something for what it's worth. And if it goes down in value, you're obviously in a worse position. But with a development facility, they're looking at what is going to be finished at the end. So when you buy a building that's going to be knocked down and they're going to build a new house, the bank and any investor should be looking at the end value minus all the costs and looking at their leverage on that point. So I just thought it was a pertinent point, a simple conversation, and I'm sure a lot of you already implement this in your businesses. And it actually came about because we've seen other businesses that have geared stock or actually developments that haven't worked. They've tried to get off their existing finance products by refinancing with a bank. They can't pull their money out, so they've got to then take on more debt into the scheme, and then they're going up into the riskier parts like 80, 90%, 100% loan to GDV. So I'm hoping if I share this, it puts another level of DD in anyone that's investing in anything finished, because the way you have to look at it is if you go and bought a flat on the open market, you'll be putting in 30% of the deposit, and you'll obviously have purchase costs. So you'll be at 100% of the cost, which might be the GDV. If there's no scope to add any value, that's where you're at. And, you're obviously buying it for, maybe long-term hold or cash flow or whatever it may be. But be careful around that sort of later part once something's finished. And I think that when we were speaking to this investor about this, that is most lenders won't look at above 80% loan to GDV, which is kind of, where you get into the realms of danger, I suppose. So just bringing attention to that, and I thought it was a pertinent point. Anything else to add on that, Ben?
No, I think you nailed it. One thing that I did want to say is this photo on the left is actually the kitchen area and mezzanine deck of our project in St Andrew's Court in Tame, which is our 20-unit office conversion. Progressing really, really well, and I'm super excited to kind of show how that is progressing in future weeks. So do stay tuned for that. And whilst we're kind of on the point of other projects, one thing that we didn't say at the beginning of this video is that we had some really good news today. We had planning approval through for the Class MA permitted development approval for 4 flats of the doctor's surgery in Long Hanborough. And we did a deep dive on that last week or the week before. So if you want to know the full figures on that, go back and take a look. But yeah, we achieved planning approval on that. So that's great. That secures the change of use from doctor's surgery to residential. Now we're going to go in with a couple of extra planning applications to enhance the externals and enhance the layouts internally as well. So yeah, stay tuned for that.
Yeah, so the deep dive was series 2, episode 4.
Nice. Cool. Point number 8, Jack's hacks.
Yeah, cool. So this is a super simple one, and I actually had a go at I said a very smarmy comment to my brother the other day, and I just thought, if people aren't doing this, you're missing out. So when I look at my email inbox on my tasks, I look at things and go, what needs to be done during working hours and what doesn't need to be done during working hours. And if you're a workaholic or a business owner like me and Ben, you do stuff outside of work hours. But for me, it doesn't make sense not doing a task where you need to, for example, today, I had the most low value, boring task in the world of calling a business rates bill that I got through. But I need to call them between 9 and 5. So that has to come in working hours. And so the way that I sort of prioritize my tasks and how I manage my diary is you have you basically break down your tasks in area of importance, and that's normally pressing, critical, or monetizing. So once you've got those down, so we've got pressing, critical tasks and monetizing tasks. So for me to fill out a form for a finance, a refinance, coming off development finance onto debt finance, the difference in that cost will probably be 1,500 quid or 5 grand a month. So if I get that done 4 days quicker, I want that done. So that's a monetizing task. Critical tasks are things that are like, we've got a bill on our desk and we need to challenge it. If we don't know, they'll get a company involved to take it further, and you don't want to deal with that. So that's a critical one, and also a monetizing, cost saving one. But then when you come to like the boring tasks, the stuff that's just your admin, life admin, contacting people, always make sure that if it's a task that you need to get hold of someone, do that during the day. And the actual example that I have here is my brother got a new laptop, and he was basically setting it up during working hours, and that mind boggled me. I was like, you can be doing better things with your time in the day and just do that while you're at home and let it run in the background, because it was pressing a button once every 20 minutes. And for me to be distracted on that when you need to be outbound calling people, building up a business, contacting tenants or businesses to grow that business, you need to prioritize that. And it's simple, but you will find that you get more value out of your days. And for an example, messing about with a floor plan in Central Suites, I would never do that in the working day. I'll always push that to, in the evening or during the lunch while I'm eating my lunch, and it needs less attention. So because it's a subsidiary task, push that back and do other things on top of that. And I think didn't I record a session in December on like managing your diary in Jack's Hacks?
I think so, yeah.
Which will be soon to be launched. But yeah, any feedback on that would be good, because any boring inputting stuff is definitely a 6 to midnight job for me.
Fair. Stephanus has commented, why don't you apply for PD and full planning at the same time? This is on the Long Hanborough scheme. Why PD first and then full planning? Is it because full planning is easier once the PD is approved? I mean, effectively, yes. On this particular scheme, when did we complete on it? It was only about a month ago, wasn't it, Jack?
Yeah, end of Jan.
So end of Jan. So we're like 4 weeks after, and we've already got planning approval for the PD. So speed was of the essence on this. We just wanted to get and establish the change of use, which allows us to strip out and start actually working on the project. And in the meantime, in the background, then it was working on the external works package. So we're adding a couple of dormers, changing some windows. But effectively, I needed more time to kind of plan for the future scheme whilst the PD was establishing the change of use. So things like the Old Maltings, which I'll talk about in a minute. Yes, we submitted the change of use and then an external works package kind of in tandem, but because of expedience, we did the PD first just to secure the change of use. I mean, we've got another project which unfortunately was rejected this week, which is a PD scheme that was rejected, Class MA. And had we submitted the full planning application, we would have wasted time and money kind of pushing forward with that one. So yeah, it's kind of horses for courses, sort of project by project. Sometimes we would submit both together, but in this occasion we wanted speed and we wanted to get the clarity of the change of use beforehand. Cool. So yeah, this is the project that we did do in external works and a Class MA sort of similar times, but now we are moving forward with a full planning application to enhance the site. So we have 20 units approved on this office conversion already, and that's what I was talking about earlier with getting a contractor lined up to start those works. Strip out is pretty much complete now, and I had a kickoff meeting with the new contractor on Wednesday this week to walk them through the site, talk them through site welfare, where we can use the internal space for their site welfare, talk them through the utilities, where the incoming stuff is, and what's going to happen in the temporary and the permanent state, which was great. It's nice to see after pretty much a year of ownership, actually things now progressing forward with putting it back together and actually converting it to flat. So super excited to start that. Also super excited now that we've pretty much dotted the I's and crossed the T's for our full planning application to be submitted. So this will be a further enhancement to get an extra 3 units at the moment. Effectively on screen, you can see the big car park area, these 2 Muse houses at the end of the unit will be new build. So we're trying to pull the bin store out to here, create these 2 new houses. The bin store was internal previously. So by removing it and putting it externally now, we can then convert the old bin store into an extra studio flat, which is an extra circa 250 grand's worth of value. And these 2 new build houses are close to 450 grand a piece. And then we'll be putting a later phase in as well to change this front section of the building, which is more prominent from the main road, into a new facade, and hopefully get an extra 1 unit with a couple of extra bedrooms in at the front there as well. So we've packaged these up separately because the front application is way more contentious than this rear section. So we're attacking them from 2 different angles with 2 separate applications. But yeah, super excited to see this one move forward, and probably worthwhile a shout out to a site tour day that we are planning. For those of you that are listening to this, would love to come and see 3 or 4 of our sites in one day. We're planning that for, I think, the late April. We don't have a specific date yet, but everything will be announced shortly. If you want to register your interest, message info@xbproperty.co.uk or DM Jack or I, and we can send you further details and add you to the list. So it's getting to the point where we've already had a couple of people sort of register their interest. We may even look at getting a kind of a coach to kind of cart all of us to different sites, because we've got a site in Tame, a site in Abingdon, a site in Marlow. It will be close to 50 units in total that we will be visiting at various different phases. Some of the works will be more progressed. Some of the works will just be starting. Some will be at strip out phase. And we plan on sort of talking people through what we're doing, how we got there, what the planning approval process has been like, what the financial sort of figures look like, and who we're funding with, and what structure. So if you are interested in coming on a site tour day, do get in touch. Cool. On to point number 10. So if you did watch or listen to season 2, episode 4, I really go into depth on how I've attacked the value engineering for our 2 biggest schemes that we've got on our plate at the moment. So Colney Hatch Lane in Muswell Hill, and the Old Maltings in Abingdon, which you've just seen. So both of these contracts, the original tenders came in over 2.1 million, ranging from 2.05-ish to 2.6, depending on which project you're talking about. And we've now agreed contract values at around the 1.7 million pound for sort of both of them. So both schemes, we've saved about 350,000 pounds on the building works by thoroughly interrogating the structural design, the architectural work, liaising with contractors, getting ideas from them from a value engineering perspective. And if you go back to season 2, episode 4, and I think even the last episode that we did, I touched on a few extra added value kind of things that you can take away to use in your value engineering process. And yeah, let me know if I've missed anything on those, and I'd be interested to understand. But as Jack said earlier, I think kind of that £700,000 saving, yes, it might have taken 25, 30, 40 hours of my time, whatever it was. But that's a huge, that's a huge hourly rate. That's a huge benefit to us as a business. And if you can interrogate drawings, work with contractors to find solutions and cheaper ways of doing things, that's the sort of saving that you can make. So 15% saving on build cost, which is absolutely nothing to be sniffed at.
Yeah, that's a monetizing task that you push away admin to get into and get that value for trade-off. Yeah,
exactly that. And if you are listening on the podcast, thank you very much. We are pretty much caught up to date. I think we're not far off now. I think I've been saying that for a couple of months, but we're almost there. We're launching about 2 new episodes every week. So if you're watching on YouTube but would like to listen at the gym or on your way to work, the Property Experts podcast is the name of it. Head over to Spotify, Apple Music, and all those good platforms to subscribe, follow, and all that good stuff. And the one thing that I ask of anyone listening to this, if you're still listening, is to share it with one person that you might think you can add value to by listening to these conversations, because the more we share the good word, the more we can help people kind of grow their businesses and be better developers.
Very good. We pretty much answered the questions as we've gone through. So thank you very much, everyone, for always joining us. And I know some people say to me, oh, I catch it up on Saturday when I'm looking after the kids, or on a Sunday when I'm driving to X and Y. So keep the comments coming even after the sessions. And if you do have a good question for next week, challenge us to see if you can ask us a question that we can't answer.
Very good. And until next week, see you later.
See you later.
Bye.